Hello everybody. I'm going to do a video today about the bride of Christ. I'm going to make it quick. I have a visual representation. I'm screen recording as I'm talking, so I will be able to show people what I'm saying. I'm working on better ways to make my videos more attentive without just looking at a blank screen, because I don't, as of right now, I want everybody to know this. I don't have a feeling or need to show myself like all these other people who are proclaiming to be the bride of Christ. I don't have a reason to show myself. Like if God is who he said he is and who I think he is, I'm sure he'll do the work. But I want to read this. This is so important. I made a video. This is in one of my older videos, The Gospel of Truth. I'm going to read this because it's so important. People don't look. People don't listen, and I've noticed people have been copying. So if you're going to copy me, I want you to know the truth. So this story is about the bride of Christ. I'm going to read this first, and then I'll get into why I'm reading this, because a lot of people need to hear this. Okay, I'm very Southern, so please disregard how I say certain things because that is my accent. So yeah, we're gonna talk about the gospel of truth, and this is in the Gnostic library. It's the Nag Hammadi library, but it's the Gnostic Gospels. I read this book a few years ago, and I wanted to just say a few words out of it. I'm going to skim through it. I'm not going to read everything. I may skip a few words, but you just pay attention, and I'm sure you'll get everything that I'm trying to get you to get out of this video. But okay, we're going to talk about it. The gospel of truth is joy to those who have received from the Father of truth the gift of knowing him by the power of Logos, who has come from the Pleroma. And this is who they're talking about, Jesus Christ, and who is in the thought and the mind of the Father. It is who is called the Savior, since that is the name of the work which he must do for the redemption of those who have not who have not feared, but who have not known the Father. For the name of the gospel is the manifestation of hope, since that is the discovery of those who seek him, because the all sought him from which it had came forth. You see, the all had been inside of him, the inconceivable one who is better than every thought. Pay attention, you guys. This ignorance of the Father brought about terror and fear, and terror became dense like a fog that no one was able to see. Because of this, error became strong, but it worked on its highly substance vainly, because it did not know the truth. It was in a fashion form while it was preparing in power and beauty the equivalent of truth. This then was not a humiliation for him, the inconceivable one, for they were as nothing, this terror and this forgetfulness and this figure of falsehood, whereas this established truth is unchanging and completely beautiful. For this reason, do not take error seriously, thus since it has no root. It was in a fog as regards the Father, engaged in preparing works and forgetfulness and fears, in order by this means to beguile those of the middle and to make them captive. This forgetfulness of error was not revealed. It did not become light beside the Father. Forgetfulness did not exist with the Father, although it existed because of him. I said that a few times before, how religion did not come from the Father, but it exists because of him. Forgetfulness did not exist with the Father because he is the truth. You will never forget. But it did exist because of him. What exists in him is knowledge, which was revealed so that forgetfulness might be destroyed and that they might know the Father. Since forgetfulness existed because they did not know the Father, if then they came to know the Father, from that moment on forgetfulness will cease to exist. That is the gospel of him whom they seek, which he has revealed to the perfect through the mercies of the Father as the hidden mystery, Jesus the Christ. Through him, he enlightened those who were in darkness because of forgetfulness. He enlightened them and gave them a path, and that path is the truth, which he taught them. For this reason, error was angry with him, so it persecuted him. It was distressed by him, so it made him powerless. He was nailed to a cross. He became a fruit of the knowledge of the Father. He did not, however, destroy them because they ate of it. He'd rather cause those who ate of it to be joyful because of this discovery. And as for him, then them he found himself, and him they found in themselves, that inconceivable one, that perfect Father who made the all, in whom the all is, in whom the all lacks, since he retained in himself their perfection, which he had not given to the all. The Father was not jealous. What jealousy indeed is there between him and his members? For even if the aeon had received their perfection, they would not have been able to approach the perfection of the Father, because he retained their perfection in himself, giving it to them as a way to return to him, and as a knowledge unique in perfection. He is the one who set the all in order, in whom the all existed, and whom the all lacked, and one of whom some have no knowledge. He desires that they know him, and that they love him for what it is that the all lack, if not knowledge of the Father. He became a guide, quiet and leisure. In the middle of the school, he spoke the word as a teacher. Those who were wise in their own estimation came to put him to the test, but he discredited them as empty-headed people. They hated him because they really were not wise men. After all, these came also the little children, those who possesses the knowledge of the Father. When they became strong, they were taught the aspects of the Father's face. They came to know, and they were known. They were glorified, and they gave glory in their heart. The living book of the living was manifest, the book of which was written in the thought and in the mind of the Father from before the foundation of the all, is in that incomprehensible part of him. This is the book which no one found possible to take, since it was reserved for him who will take it and be slain. No one was able to manifest from those who believe in salvation as long as the book had not appeared. For this reason, the compassionate, faithful Jesus was patient in his sufferings until he took that book, since he knew that his death meant life for many, just as in the case of a will which had not been open, for the fortune of the deceased matter of the house is hidden. So also in the case of the all, which had been hidden as long as the Father of the all was invisible and unique in himself, in whom every space has its source. For this reason Jesus appeared. He took that book as his own. He was nailed to a cross and affixed the edict of the Father to the cross. Oh, such a great teaching! He abases himself even unto death. Though he is clothed in eternal life, having divested himself of these perishable rags, he clothed himself in incorruptibility, which no one could possibly take from him. Having entered into the empty territory of fears, he passed before those who were stripped by forgetfulness, being both knowledgeable in perfection and proclaiming the things that are in the heart of the Father, so that he became the wisdom of those who have received instruction. But those who are taught the living, who are inscribed of the book of the living learn for themselves, receiving instructions from the Father, turning to him again. Since the perfection of the all is in the Father, it is necessary for the all to ascend to him. Therefore, if one has knowledge, he gets what belongs to him and draws it to himself. For he who is ignorant is deficient, and is a great deficiency, since he lacks that which will make him perfect. Since the perfection of the all is in the Father, it is necessary for the all to ascend to him, and for each one to get these things which are his. He registered them first, having prepared them to be given to those who came from him. Those whose name he knew first were called last, so that the one who had knowledge is he whose name the Father has pronounced. For he whose name has not been spoken is ignorant. Indeed, how shall one hear of his name has not been uttered? For he who remains ignorant until the end is a creature of forgetfulness and will perish with it. That's all those people who are proclaiming themselves to be the bride of Christ, from the groups to the individual. That is for you. Indeed, how shall one hear his name if it has not been uttered? For he who remains ignorant until the end is a creature of forgetfulness and will perish with it. If this is not so, why have these wretches no name? Why do they have no sound? Hence, if one has knowledge, he is from above, If he is called, he hears, he replies, and he turns toward him who has called him and ascends to him. He knows what he is called, since he has knowledge. He does the will of him who has called him. He desires to please him. He finds rest. He receives a certain name. He who thus is going to have knowledge knows whence he came and whither he's going. He knows it is a person who is becoming intoxicated, has turned from his drunkenness, and having come to himself, has restored what is his own. He has turned many from error. Let me go up a little bit. He has turned many from error. He went before them to their own places from which they departed when they erred because of the depth of him who surrounds every place, whereas there is nothing which surrounds him. It is a great wonder that they were in the Father without knowing him, and that they were able to leave on their own, since they were not able to contain him and know him in whom they were. For indeed, his will had not come forth from him, for he revealed it as a knowledge with which all its imaginings agree, namely the knowledge of the living book, which he revealed to the aeons. At last his letters explained to them that these are not merely vowels or consonants, so that the one may read them and think something void of meaning. To the contrary, these letters which convey the truth, they are pronounced only when they are known. Each letter is perfect truth, like a perfect book, for they are letters within the hand of unity, since the Father wrote them for the aeon, so that they mean by his letters might come to know the Father. Okay, I'm going to read this last paragraph because it's a lot. While his wisdom meditates on logos, and since his teaching expresses it, his knowledge has been revealed. His honor is a crown upon it. Since his joy agrees with it, his glory exalted it. It has revealed his image. It has obtained his rest. His love took a bodily form around it. His trust embraced it. Thus the logos of the Father goes forth into the all, being the fruit of his heart and the expression of his will. It supports the all. It chooses and it takes form of the all, purifying it and causing it to return to the Father, to the Mother, Jesus of the utmost sweetness. The Father opens his bosom, but his bosom is the Holy Spirit. And that's where wisdom comes in. He reveals his hidden self, which is his Son, so that through the compassion of the Father, the aeons may know him. In their wearying search for the Father, and rest themselves in him, knowing that this is rest. After he had filled what was incomplete, he did away with the form. The form of it is the world in which it served. For there was envy and there was strife, there was incompleteness, but where there is unity, there is completeness. Since this incompleteness came about because they did not know the Father. So when they know the Father, incompleteness from that moment on will cease to exist, as one ignorance disappears when he gains knowledge, and as darkness disappears when light appears, so will incompleteness as eliminated by completeness. Certainly from that moment on, form is no longer manifest, but will be dissolved in fusion with unity, for now their works lie scattered. In time, unity will make spaces complete. By means of unity, each one will understand itself. By means of knowledge, it will purify itself of diversity, with a views toward unity, devouring matter within itself like fire, and darkness by light by death. Darkness of light, death by life. Okay, y'all can finish reading this. It's a lot more. I read the whole thing, but I'm not going to make this video a long video about me reading all this. So yeah, I just wanted to give you a quick synopsis of the gospel of truth, which is really talking about once you understand the knowledge of the Father, once you understand his truth, your fears, your forgetfulness, everything that is not perfect will disappear. Yeah, I wanted to talk about the gospel of truth. If you have time, please check it out. It's so informative. It's so knowledgeable, and it's so true. So, you check that out. That's what I read. It's in the non-commodity library, but it's a Gnostic gospel. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to talk about that before I get into this topic that I'm going to talk about. I made in my notes. I have to go to my notes. So I'm going to go to my notes, and we're going to talk about it. Okay, I actually made this note. I was going to upload this video on the 23rd, but I didn't. So, today I'm choosing the day to upload it. And I want to talk about this because I've been seeing people who proclaim themselves to be the bride of Christ like Tila Tequila, or the other black women who said she's a wife of God, and a few other people who proclaims themselves to be the bride of Christ. I want to make this video pertaining to you. You limit God's power when you say things like God is only speaking through you, God is only working through you, and God is only going to save your particular race of people. You are limiting God's power, and God's power isn't limited. Religion limits God's power too, because Christians believe that God will only save the saints and allow the sinners to perish, which is a lie, because nobody knows what God is going to do. Quit speaking for God. God speaks for himself. If he wants us to know anything, he will. So everybody that's on here prophesizing, setting dates, trying to limit God's power to what their little human mind thinks God may be, understand God is not limited to you. You limit his power when you say things like he's only going to save the saints. He's only going to save the Asians. He's only going to save the African Americans. He's only going to save the Muslims. He's only going to save, the Arabs. He's only going to save people who stay in southern states. He's only going to save people who stay in northern states. He's only going to save people who stay in Africa. When you say things like that, you limit God's power. God is not limited to only one place, thing, or person. People have to realize that. And if anybody's on YouTube proclaiming that God is speaking through them and only them, then they're a lie. They are a lie. God speaks for himself. I'm not on these videos proclaiming anything, saying that I'm anything, prophesizing anything, because I let God do that. I'm just talking about what God has shown me, what I have not yet seen anybody talking about. It's everybody on here. To me, it's like everybody stops at the bride of Christ, especially the women who believe that they are the bride of Christ. They stop there. They don't care about God. They don't care about what God has for us. They want to know everything about the bride of Christ and nothing about God. And that's why you know that they are not who they say they are. Because God, the bride of Christ, is only probably an inch of what God is going to show us. The bride of Christ is a piece of that story of what God is going to show us. Like, everybody's so hell-bent on trying to figure out who the bride of Christ is. And everybody is so hell-bent on proclaiming that they are the bride of Christ. Don't you know that God is showing us so many other things besides that? That's only a piece of it. I talked about the bride of Christ in my other videos because that's what I was learning at that time. But as of right now, I'm learning that I'm not going to limit God's power by saying that I'm the bride of Christ and you're not, and God is only doing this and God is only doing that for me and nobody else. Nah, I'm not going to do that. If I am the bride of Christ, if God chooses me to be that, he'll speak it. He'll show it. I don't have to prove that to anybody. But I hope that people are not following these cult-like people who are proclaiming God to be this and that, and they have no idea who God is. That's where the ignorance and forgetfulness comes into play. If they are not speaking about who God is, trying to inform people of how to understand who God is, and if they're only talking about the bride of Christ, then they are not of God. If you are online, if you are looking at this video because you believe you are the bride of Christ and you don't know anything about God, you are not the bride of Christ. If you want to know who the bride of Christ is, figure out who God is first. And then he'll show you who the bride of Christ is. There's a lot of people that come and look at my videos and copy word from word and change it up so it can sound like I'm talking about them. I'm not talking about anybody on YouTube. I'm talking about God. All of my videos has everything to do with God and nobody on YouTube. I don't believe that anybody's on YouTube that's proclaiming themselves to be the bride of Christ are the bride of Christ. So if anybody is using anything that I'm saying and they're saying it's them, understand it's not. God speaks for himself. And if he was going to speak through somebody, it wouldn't be somebody who's going to limit him. That's why I made this list. Do not limit God's power. Race and religion does not make you chosen. God's mind and our minds are completely different, and we can't comprehend or grasp that type of power that God has. He speaks for himself. I can't sit and listen to Tila Tequila videos. Like, I can't. I'll cut the volume down and I'll let the captions go. I'll just see some of the crazy stuff she posts. But What makes me laugh is when she says that Asians, or she is the only people, or the only vessel that God is speaking through. No, no. Tequila has lost it, and she is not the bride of Christ. There's nobody on YouTube that's proclaiming to be the bride of Christ. They're not the bride of Christ. I'm not proclaiming to be the bride of Christ. I'm talking about God. It's so crazy to me that people get so stuck at the bride of Christ and they don't want to know anything else about anybody else. They want to know everything about the bride of Christ because they think that's who they are. No, if you want to know who God is, he'll show you who the bride of Christ is. I'm not going to make videos posting my physical self because I've seen what these people on YouTube are doing. They're just trying to use God and pretty much rise themselves up from God. I don't feel the need to show myself. I don't feel the need to make videos dancing around in dresses and proclaiming that God is doing this and doing that. No, listen. If you read this stuff, if you're looking at my videos and you reading this and you putting what I'm saying to the test, God will show you who he is. Quit limiting God's power. God is not limited to a religion, and God is not limited to a race, and he definitely isn't limited to a region. We are living on something he created. Everybody is able to breathe and live. This, and he's not limited. He's the reason why we are here living this life. But when you hear people like atheists say, oh, if God was here, or if God was who he said he was, why would he allow this to happen? Why would he allow that to happen? I think it's because a lot of people have the wrong idea. They have this inspired idea about who and what God is. God isn't a limited God. If you believe that God is who he say he is, an ultimate being full of power that nobody can take away, you better believe he gonna break any barrier that you place on him. All these people like Tequila who placing these barriers on God, saying he's just gonna do this, he's just gonna do that. Watch how he breaks it. Watch how he breaks every barrier she places on him, just to show her that, listen, I'm not anything like you saying. I'm not limited. If you want to talk about God, don't limit him. If you want to associate God with anything, make sure it's limitless. Religion is a limit. Religion is not limitless. They put a limit on God's power. And they have this saying, if you don't fear God, if you don't live this way, let me tell you something. When God decides to show up on earth, ain't nobody going to be able to tell who's going to be able to experience or not. And let me tell you something. Ain't nobody going to be able to harness God's power and pass it out to whoever they feel like deserves it. Listen, no. Everybody's going to see it. Everybody's going to experience it. Quit limiting his power. The reason why he hasn't shown up is because people are too ignorant to understand that he's not limited. Everybody's praying to a limited God, when the true God, our Father God, who created all of this, he is not limited. Quit trying to associate him with your race. Quit trying to associate him with your religion. Associate him with the truth. His knowledge is the truth. Associate him with that. And quit trying to make this about only you. I think that's a lot of people's big issues. They want God to be about only them. No, I want God to be about everybody. I want everybody to experience it regardless of what you've done. This earth is so imperfect, and we get wrapped around trying to live perfect and trying to say that if you aren't perfect, you're gonna. No, listen, it's just imperfect. Ain't no perfectness about it. I don't care what you do, how much money you make, how many followers you have, whatever you do, it won't make you perfect on this earth. The only thing that makes you perfect is knowing who God is in truth. Nobody's gonna be able to decide who's going to experience God. And quit saying that. I try to tell people all the time, like, quit speaking for God. You don't understand who God is. If you are limiting him, you do not understand who he is. And please don't. God speaks for himself. Anybody that's on here proclaiming a certain date, when God is going to come back a certain hour, a certain time, who he's going to visit, what he's doing. You have no idea who God is. God's mind, God is a divinity. He's a source. He don't think like us. And that's why I say people limit God's power because they can't comprehend his mind. So they try to think that God's mind is like ours. God's mind is like our mind. It's not. God's mind is completely different from ours. I don't think we'll ever be able to grasp his complete, perfect mind. I don't think we're not supposed to limit it. We're not supposed to grasp it. And we're not supposed to, lie about it. God is God. That's it. Leave it at that. Don't try to classify him with a religion. You limit him when you classify him with religion. You limit him when you classify him with only yourself. I'm not on here speaking for God. I'm not only saying God is blessing me. I'm telling you what I learned and what I feel like God is trying to do with my life. And hopefully, if you believe in what I'm saying, he'll do the same thing with you. Like the church is this may be the last year of it. Like, people don't understand. God is not limited to a building. God is not limited to a certain individual. God is not limited to only the bride of Christ. God is not only limited to everybody in the United States. God has the power to touch every living, breathing soul on this earth, and he is. He is. You cannot determine what God is going to do. And if you are pronouncing yourself to be the bride of Christ and you are proclaiming what God is going to do, he's going to show you exactly who he is by doing everything that you're saying he's going to do. He's going to do the opposite. A lot of people just want to be or want to proclaim themselves as something and don't even understand it's not even about proclaiming yourself. It's about understanding who God is. If you know who God is, he'll show everybody that you are telling the truth. That's exactly what Jesus did. He was the only one that knew him. So God was able to show everybody, listen, you better listen because he's speaking some truth. I'm going to show you how he's speaking truth. I'm going to make some stuff happen for you to be able to notice that, listen, he's speaking about me. I'm going to make another video on another day. I told you I'm trying to get better at, doing a visual representation of stuff when I'm talking about it, because I don't want to show myself. I don't want to show my body. I don't want to be on here twirling around, and I don't want to be on here proclaiming and saying I'm going to torture and kill people. That's not me. I want to put out knowledge, truth. That's all I'm doing on this channel. So if you want to know who God is, and if you want to experience what God is, open your heart to his truth and let him show you who he is. He's not limited. He does not hate people who does certain things and live certain lives. Like everybody say, oh, you're going to torture. Yes, certain stuff is not good. Everything is not good, but who's to decide that? Like, we are not here to judge or to determine what's God like and what's not. We got to leave that up to God. But for us saying that his power is only limited, how can he limit his power? How can God limit his power to only certain people? We are living on something he created. We are living on the earth. If God's power was limited, half of everybody on earth would be dead right now. And half will be living because it's limited. Everybody has an opportunity to live and die on this earth. It's not limited. You have that will. And that's why I made this. I'm going to say this quote because this is what I'm going to talk about on my next video. Whenever I put it up, I'm not putting up videos every day because I actually sit and I wait for God to teach me and show me what he wants me to say before I actually can put it out so I can help people understand exactly what I'm saying. A choice made out of fear isn't really a choice. And I want every Christian to sit and think about that quote. A choice made out of fear isn't really a choice. When you're making a choice out of fear, it isn't a choice. You got to choose what doesn't make you scared. If you're in a life, or if people are putting you in a life or death situation, saying that if you don't choose this, then this is going to happen. You're going to choose whatever it is they saying, because you don't want nothing to happen. But what if it doesn't happen? Then you made the wrong choice because out of fear, it left you no option. Trust in God. Trust in who he say he is, and quit putting barriers on him. Quit limiting him. God isn't meant to be limited, and God can break any barrier that religion or you place on him. When people say things about fear and hell, listen, if hell and this stuff is real, if hell and the devil and everything is real, and I'm not saying it's not real, I've never experienced it. I've never lived to experience, so I can't speak and say I know for a fact hell is real. I just solely believe that if God is who he say he is, he can break through every barrier of hell that has been created. He can break through that. Quit limiting God's power to only you, to only your beliefs. People don't even realize that the reason why they make these ideas up about God is because you won't question it out of fear. It's not a choice when you're fearful. You're going to choose what doesn't make you scared. Don't make that choice out of fear. Learn who God is in truth, and who he is in love, and who he is in spirit. It does not stop at the bride of Christ. It continues. So learn who God is. It's not about the bride of Christ. Anybody that's on here proclaiming themselves to be the bride of Christ, they aren't. Tequila isn't the bride of Christ. I don't know who the other woman is that's saying she's a wife. She's not the bride of Christ. Anybody that's limiting God's power, they are definitely not associated with God. So hopefully they'll take a step back and understand that God speaks for himself, and they don't have to sit on here and speak for God. They don't understand God, so please don't speak for him. They spread all this ignorance when they try to speak for God, and knowing deep well that God is going to speak for himself every single time. They probably live in fear because they make these statements about God, and they know sooner or later God is going to show them whether they're being truthful, or they just, leading people down a path of destruction. So, if you don't want to be led down a path of destruction, don't speak for God. Speak for yourself. Speak from your experiences. Speak from your knowledge. Don't speak for God. Don't copy, and don't speak for God. Your individual experiences with God is your Bible. You need to write down every scripture that you experience every day. You are the Bible. You are the religion. Literally. If you want to worship any religion, worship your religion individually with God, your personal experiences, what God is showing you individually. Quit trying to proclaim yourself as something you're not. Nobody in here I don't know. I don't know. I'm not speaking for God, but I'm just saying, don't speak for him. If you want to understand who God is, I think the first step is letting God let God show you who he is, and not speaking and saying what he is or what you think he is. But yeah, I'll make another video soon. So yeah, I'm in this video, and I hope you guys have a great night.